I think I sing that little song, hope I say it nothing wrong. Hope my song she bring you cheer, just like couple of shots and beer. Union man, he must have full dinner can. AFL-CIO, call and strike, out she go.
Throughout American labor movement history, labor unions were the driving force for better working rights. With the collective power of strikes, bargains, and legal action, unions took the responsibility of advocating for the right to better pay conditions. However, unions, while beneficial, unfairly represent people during the 20th century, and minorities were left having to fight for their place in unions such as during World War II and the Sleeping Car Porter Union.
In the early 1900s, American workers faced many hurdles in the workplace. With long work hours and no minimum wage, they were being paid pennies for hours of their labor. Working conditions were no better, with injuries being common, especially in factories, and children having to work at very young ages. Being tired of this, workers banded together and unions started to grow rapidly, like the Knights of Labor, Workers United, and one of the biggest unions, the AFL.
The AFL was founded by Samuel Gompers, an incredibly influential man who pushed the AFL into such a position of power it competed with other interest groups. Promising better representation and benefits, around 4 million people had joined the AFL by the 1920s. Although unions were extremely successful in their goal for better working rights, most were extremely racist and would only accept members if they were white. Unfortunately, Samuel Gompers was a part of this as well. Originally, the AFL did accept black workers. It was nearly impossible to join, but Samuel Gompers later reversed the decision and would pit white workers against black and Chinese workers. Gompers believed that the maintenance of the nation depended on maintenance of racial purity. He urged black workers to create their own colored unions, but it doesn't mean that the barriers between whites and blacks are to be removed.
One of the first black-only unions was founded by A. Philip Randolph in 1925. This labor union became the most important civil rights organization in mid-20th century America. The Pullman Company, a railroad company, emerged as one of the few employers willing to hire black workers as waiters and porters for their train sleeping cars. While obtaining such a job offered a pathway into the black middle class, it also perpetuated a master-servant dynamic, reflecting a long history of subservience in African American labor. Despite the dignity these jobs conferred within the black community, interactions with white passengers forced porters to navigate a demeaning subservience. Porters relied heavily on tips for their income, which meant their financial stability was tied to their willingness to cater to white customers in a way that often stripped them of their dignity. Additionally, working conditions were poor, and porters often had to pay for their own uniform, food, and lodging, which consumed up to half of their earnings.
Randolph faced tremendous opposition from Pullman executives, who labeled him a communist and employed spies to surveil union activities. The company also received support from segments of the black elite in Chicago, wary of Randolph's ambitions and a potential impact on their own jobs. Over the course of a decade, Randolph worked to sway these influential figures to recognize the necessity of the union, but this effort was challenging given the historic mistrust between black workers and organized labor, which often included white animosity towards black workers. Despite his best effort, the Brotherhood struggled for survival. Pullman resisted negotiations and sought to undermine the union at every turn. The American Federation of Labor initially treated Randolph's union with suspicion, refusing to grant it a charter until 1935, despite the AFL's gradual shift towards inclusivity.
While Randolph was a key figure, he was not the sole leader of the Brotherhood. Organizers like Milton Price Webster were instrumental, but largely forgotten in history. The 1920s proved particularly challenging, with the company working closely with law enforcement to disrupt union meetings and placing obstacles in the way of potential strikes. Nevertheless, the union persisted, playing a significant role in the civil rights movement of the 1930s by promoting publications like the Chicago Defender, even in areas where it was banned. The Brotherhood's resilience culminated in the passing of the Wagner Act, which secured their rights to organize, leading to a contract with Pullman in 1937 that included improved wages and working conditions.
As car travel became more common in post-war years, the role of railroad porters dwindled, culminating in the union's merger with other labor groups in 1978. Randolph, however, remained an essential figure in black labor and civil rights activism till his death, organizing the March on Washington in 1941, which ultimately led to Executive Order 8802 and the integration of defense industries.
Unfortunately, black unions weren't as strong as they thought they were. John LaFleur, the head of the Mobile, Alabama division of the NAACP, pushed the Alabama Dry Dock and Shipbuilding Company, also known as ADDSEO, to promote black workers to skilled jobs. With many white men being drafted into the Army, black men would replace them, mostly in manufacturing, shipbuilding, and munitions. Eventually, the Alabama Dry Dock and Shipbuilding Company agreed and promoted 12 black men as welders, seen as a step towards equality by people of color, and incited violent backlash from white workers who viewed it as a threat to their jobs.
On May 24, 1943, white workers attacked the 12 black men who were promoted and any other black workers. They used crowbars and wrenches to senselessly beat the black workers and chase them out of the shipyard. One account, by a man who worked in a shipyard across the river, said, "All I could see was people running." Another said, "A lot of people had to swim the river to keep from being beaten." The National Guard was called in to break up the fight and restore peace. Miraculously, nobody had died in the altercation. However, 80 people, mostly black, were seriously injured. It scared many black workers that white workers would attack so relentlessly. The black workers refused to return to the worksite, and it was not until John LaFleur and the CIO asked for a separate workplace that they agreed to return. Years of work undone in a day, but not all was lost. Hoping to prove themselves, the next year, the black dockyard was able to build a whole ship in record-breaking time, only 72 days. There have been many cases like this where minority groups would have to stand up for themselves because unions would not represent them. We have cases like Cesar Chavez, who created the National Farm Workers Association and organized migrant workers. He realized that a large minority group was not helped by the unions of the time and created the NFWA, later becoming the United Farm Workers of America, to shine a light onto their unrecognized rights. The UFW was extremely successful and was the first successful farm workers union.
As we continue to move forward, it is crucial for labor unions to embrace diversity and advocate for the rights of colored workers by fostering inclusivity. Unions can build stronger coalitions and ensure every worker's rights are protected. The true strength of a union lies in its ability to stand together, regardless of race or background, and fight as one.
In 1933, when Mr. Roosevelt took his seat, said to President John L. Lewis, "In union we must be. Come, let us work together, ask God to lead the plan. By this time another year, we'll have the union back again. Hooray, hooray, for the union we must stand. It's the only organization protect the living man. Boys, it makes our women happy, our children clap their hands. To see the beefsteak and the good pork chop steaming in those frying pans." When the President and John L. Lewis had signed that decree, they called for Mitch and Rainey, Tower off was made to 3. Go down in Alabama, organize every living man. Spread the news all over the land, we got the union back again. Hooray!